Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another segment on invasive species. My name is Victor Sanchez, and today we will discover the outcomes and effects these alien species pose on our local environment, and we'll also take a look on the global effects. But how are invasive species so harmful? When invasive species are introduced to a new ecosystem, it might not have any natural predators, or the ecosystem may not be able to control these new alien species. There are two different types of threats: indirect and direct threats. Some direct threats could be that they prey on native species, they outcompete the native species for food. Some invasive species may carry harmful diseases, and they can prevent the native species from reproducing by killing their young. These direct threats lead to more consequential indirect threats, which can lead to chaos in the environment. Indirect threats including the changing of the food web, a decrease of biodiversity, and the altering of ecosystems conditions. Locally, Florida is a prime example in which these invasive species are destroying and disrupting the local environment, and also affecting business chains. One example would be the lionfish. Australia is one good example in which invasive species are taking over. The European wild rabbit are one of the species that has greatly damaged Australia's ecosystem. There are different ways in dealing with these invasive species. This investigation has reached ways to deal with them through eradication, education, and my perspective, control and maintenance. Primarily, eradication is one of the possible solutions in solving this invasive species threat. Eradication in context of invasive species is the elimination and degradation of the invasive or non-native organism. A species is completely eradicated when 2 years have passed after the last organism found for that species. Eradication is always an attainable goal. Of course, it would be easier if they implemented the solution as soon as the invading species has been introduced. Eradication becomes less viable as the population of the invading species is already substantially high and persistent. Locally in Florida, the giant African land snail has been considered to be one of the most damaging snails in the world. These snails pose a serious threat because they consume at least 500 different types of plants, and they also affect human health. They also reproduce quickly. Each month, gulls lay thousands of eggs. Here we have a short interview with Adam Putnam about eradication. He is a commissioner of Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. We have you here to talk to you about eradication as a possible solution to invading species. What are your thoughts about the issue?
Well, invading species are very complex for ecosystem. Not only locally, but globally as well. Invading species pose a threat to native species and also affect the food chain, the environment, and health development. Eradication is a possible solution as long as invading species can be introduced to the ecosystem because it will be easier to put down and eradicate. If we wait too long, the invading organism will reproduce, and eradication will become less viable.
So what do you suggest we should do?
Eradication is an effective solution, and the state of Florida and the whole world should continue as a practice solution. But eradication alone can't solve the problem. Other solutions such as control and educating the public will solve the issue.
Interesting idea, Adam. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you for having me. It was great being here.
One other solution to solve the invasive species would be to educate the public's DSNR, Bureau of State Parks and Environmental Education programs that reach hundreds of thousands of people each year. While the Bureau of Forestry Stewardship Programs provides Pennsylvania more than 500,000 private forest landowners with necessary knowledge to manage their forests for resource sustainability. This existing environmental education and stewardship outreach programs combined with the work of DSNR's, other offices and bureaus with a unique opportunity to reach a significant population across the Commonwealth. Education that promotes understanding of invasive species issue is a vital basis for partnerships between landowners, managers, and the public. Shared knowledge includes recognition of problem species, habitat and land management practices that foster species establishment and the ecological changes caused by populations. There are some existing educational problems that are already going forth. DSNR currently maintains the largest conservation and environmental stewardship educated program in the Commonwealth. The topics of invasive species identification and management have been introduced into appropriate education and training programs in the past, and we should continue to be done. Furthermore, my last perspective is control and maintenance. Carrie Gilbert is a section chief of resource planning and inventory division. She might have a bias and vested interest as she works for a company that deals with the issue of invading species, but it also gives her ability to see as she worked for her company for quite some time and has first-hand accounts on this issue of invading species. Control and maintenance is an effective solution in solving the invasive species issue locally and globally. Chemical treatment is frequently required to control invasive species in silviculture procedures. Prioritizing area species before starting the solution is important for selecting the most appropriate methods. Many different methods can be used to control invasive species on Pennsylvania Department of Conservation of Natural Resources, NANS. This approach requires a concentrated effort to either prevent the initial introduction of the species or the ability to recognize and contend with population as soon as they appear. Control methods depend on the species being controlled and the characteristics of the site being treated. Target species must be identified in individual parks and forest districts. Risk of each control method must be considered against the benefits of successful suppression. Controlling invasive plants might include biological control, synthetic pesticides, application, and mechanical control or prescribed fire. There's also control against insects and diseases. BOF Division of FPM manages monitoring and control programs for many exotic insects and diseases throughout Pennsylvania. The division has a long-established suppression program for gypsum moth and forest lands owned by DSNR, using biological insecticides as a principal control tactic. This would be one solution for solving the threat of invasive species. Overall, there are many ways to handle the issue of invading species and the threats they pose. There are a lot of programs locally and globally that have been handled this threat. Here locally, the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Service have been educating the public with helpful videos and also providing the audience with a way to communicate with them if they ever come across an invading species. For example, the giant African land snail. In Australia, the growing issue of the invading species has been destroying the ecosystem. The Australian government has been taking action on the issue in their country and have implemented policies to allow the eradication of non-native organisms and also created policies to not only control them, but also have communicated with the public and respected audience to educate them about the invasive species and knowing what they are and how they look like. Moreover, invading species is also a growing issue, but the local and global government have been implementing new ideas and solutions to handle the problem. Advanced countries can help and fund programs in other small and less technological advanced countries that have the same problem dealing with invading species. These programs consist of different control methods, such as mechanical, biological, and educating the public. There are many programs that are already practicing disease control with invading species. With these ways to address the issue, the problem of invading species will dwindle more and more with time. This is all we have time for. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.